Hi, it's Kevin from FPG. Again, we're going to do a tech video on the new Mitsubishi Evolution 1-6 twin, single or twin pump hanger. We've had this product out in the wild for quite some time, and I'm finally putting some time aside to go through it and show what it does, how it works, how it fits, and why we've done things a certain way, because there's a lot of reasoning behind the design, and it's going to make it a lot easier for people to understand and to install. So this product is fairly unique. I don't think there's any or many brands on the market that make a kit like that for these cars, and I can understand why. The design of this product wasn't so straightforward. I sort of wanted to can the project quite a few times, and I couldn't really afford to pull my hair out much. So here it is. I'll do a bit of an unboxing, show you what comes in the kit, and yeah, we'll go through all the components. So inside this little box, we have quite a few things. We've got a new fuel level sender. We got these made to the right specifications and size. Super compact little unit. You'll see why when you try and jam several things inside the little fuel tank. We supply new connectors. All FPG kits come ready to wire up. We get a lot of people asking, oh, is my hanger going to come with the matching connectors? And I don't have this, I don't have that. That's never a problem. If you need it, it's in the box. The only thing that doesn't come in the kit are the fuel pumps. The reason behind that is because you might want one, you might want two, you might want a 460, you might want a 525, whatever your target horsepower, your fuel type. And on that point, I'm going to actually insist that please do your calculations. If you need 600 horsepower worth of fuel, don't put 1200 horsepower worth of fuel. It's going to create all sorts of other issues. You've got overflowing, overheating, you've got overloading of your connectors. Your Venturi is designed to handle a certain amount of liters per hour in return. So bigger is not better. Size it correctly and it's just going to work. This is the little nugget. Quite happy with the color and how it's come up. Got a little chopped up Allen key, and I'll show you why. And a little FPG sticker to add to your collection. Hopefully by now you've got 12 of those. All right, I'm going to start with this one because everyone wants to see the golden one. So this is the hanger, and as you can see, it's quite small. The fuel tank in those cars is extremely limited in size. I'm not sure if Mitsubishi maybe thought, oh, we're going to put this fuel tank in some tiny run around town, and then we happen to put it in some high performing rally car later in the future. But anyway, this is what we were left with. We've got the top section. You've got -6 fittings, and there are 4 of them. You might wonder why. Well, we've designed the kit with twin -6 feeds. So if you're running 2 fuel pumps, each pump's going to have an outlet. The reason being is the tank doesn't allow for a lot of clearance, so we needed to keep everything fairly compact. And if you want to run a -8 or -10 line to your engine, that's okay. The only thing is you're going to have to run 2 -6 lines and then join them under the car or at your fuel filter or whatever the case may be. Very fairly easy assembly. You've got a ring of Allen key bolts there. These 2. You'll see they're only a couple of mil longer than the others, but just bear that in mind. You can, connector is on an O-ring, it just pops out. You then take the remaining cap screws out. Top section comes off. This is what it looks like. We've got a high flow Venturi or jet pump valve attached. So the center port is your return port. Fuel return from your regulator is going to come through here. It's going to shoot through that calibrated orifice. There's a one-way valve. As it's coming through, it's creating a vacuum at that port, and it's going to pull the fuel from the other side of the tank. So that's your transfer. It pulls the fuel through that fitting, and it's going to dump it back in your pump section. This is very important for it to work. We've designed it for around a 400 liters an hour return. It's important to keep that in mind, because if you're running two 460 litre an hour pumps, for example, don't run both of them flat out all the time, because you're going to be trying to return 900 litres an hour through that valve and it's not going to like it. You're going to have back pressure issues. So stage your pump. Turn pump 1 on and turn pump 2 only when pump 1 is, near its end of flow. While I'm on that topic, it's also very important to size your fuel pumps correctly. We get too many people that buy bigger is better. I understand a lot of you want room to grow in the future with power goals and targets and different types of fuel, but in my mind, it's much better to work out exactly what you need and size your fuel pumps, your regs, your injectors and your lines to suit your power output. If you want 600 horsepower, build it for 600. If you put 900 or 1,000 horsepower worth of fuel, you're just going to have all sorts of issues. You might see this little cap screw here and here. I'll cover that while I've got it. It's a grounding point. So you can actually run your negatives through the billet. We've added this feature because obviously your pins, you've only got a certain amount of pins in your bulkhead and you can run out of pins fairly quickly. Another way to do things is if you're running Walbro 525s, for example. A lot of people like those pumps because they flow a lot, but they draw a lot of current. I think it's actually wise to double up the pins on some of those pumps. So in that example, you could run two 525s and use 2 pins for each positive. So you'd have 2 positives for pump 1, 2 positives for pump 2, and put your negatives through the hat. That will carry a lot of current and you're not going to get overheating issues. So with the wiring and the connectors, I might as well mention it now. So these are the connectors that come in the kit. They're a Delphi Apex 2.8. That's the technical name. They're a 2.8 millimeter terminal. We supply some heavier gauge terminals for your fuel pumps because you'd want the larger crimps. And the loose ones like this are a smaller section which are better suited to your smaller wires. This one doesn't have any seals because it's in the fuel. This one is your weatherproof one that has seals on the inside, on the outside. This will come and connect to the top, and you've got a locking tab, so this cannot come off. All right, before we get to the car and the tank, we're going to prepare the fuel pumps. A lot of that sort of work is a lot easier on the bench than in the car. So the idea is to cut the connectors off. So I prepared it earlier. You're going to chop your wires off. These will then get stripped. You get your matching tail. And then what we're going to do is use these joiners to crimp them together. These allow you a nice crimp between the two wires. The heat shrink is supplied in the kit. It will go nicely over, try to center it. Then with a heat gun, you can shrink it on. These are epoxy lined, you gotta heat it. You'll see it shrink and the black epoxy will start coming out the sides. They will stay in the tank. If you use normal heat shrink, it just doesn't last in the fuel. It will come off, slide off, and yeah, don't really want that. All right, we're back. We've prepared the pumps. The wires have been extended. We've got our crimps and our epoxy lined heat shrink nicely on. This is what we want. So the wiring's been prepared on the pumps. I've chosen to put the eyelets on the negatives. I've put my larger gauge Delphi connector on the positive on both pumps. So we've got our wiring extension with our terminals on both pumps. Got the strainers on, so these are ready. We've got our carrier there. We've got the fuel level sender, same thing. I've put the 3 lighter gauge terminals and I've actually clipped them in, 1, 2, 3 on the release tab side. You'll see why, because in the car it kind of goes like this. So this is ready. I've left the locking wedge there, that's out. So we've got our CP9 factory fuel tank. It's been chopped in half. This is the baffled section where the fuel pump resides, the factory one. That's what it looks like inside. And the factory hanger has hard lines on it. It's fairly limited in a lot of ways, so we're just not going to bother with it. Most of you know that it's actually not possible to remove that in the car without cutting the lines or dropping the cradle in the tank. So we're going to assume you've dropped your cradle, you've got your tank out, you've got it on the bench, you've removed all the factory stuff, you gave it a good clean. Now's the time. We're going to start by putting the fuel pumps in the tank one at a time. So this one sits here. The second one's going to go in next to it. Now we're going to grab our holder. You can use the wires to move the pumps. We're going to feed the holder in. Everything is super snug, so you're just going to have to be patient and get everything lined up. But this is what it's going to look like. It's going to slide over your 2 pumps. And then I'm actually going to feed the wires inside, because otherwise they're going to get in the way. And this one is going to go around the back of the other pump. And then just clear from where we are. I might just leave them slightly out of the tank so we don't have to fish them out later. So this is what it's going to look like. Next, we're going to grab the fuel level sender that we've prepared with the connector. Wires are folded towards the back like this. And we're going to go in, drop it in its little groove all the way down. Then you wind the little screw in, and that's in. We'll leave the connector out as well like this. All right, we might just check that everything moves. Yep, we're good. Next step is we're going to grab our billet base there. I've already installed the O-ring with a dab of grease, so it's nice and stuck in there so it doesn't fall out. I'm going to pop the ring on. So we're going to pop the wiring through. And we're going to drop the ring in position and just align the pump barbs in. Now the screw is going to go into the post. And as I wind it in, everything wants to line up. We can pop them on so nothing moves and you're not running the risk of your base O-ring popping out without you knowing as you're wiggling things around. This pump sits higher than this pump because the tank's got a step in the bottom. So this one is hard against the step, this one is further down. It's okay, it just means that I'll call this the rear pump. The O-ring is going to sit below the second barb. I'll place it on now. You can use your little Allen key or something to push it on. You got to push it on the barb until it goes down the base of the gold housing. Now the front pump, it doesn't sit as high, and we want to sit fairly low. The O-ring is actually going to sit in between these 2 barbs. We're going to sit it in here. That will be the correct spot for this one. Now, sometimes it's a little hard to grab and lift the pump, what you can do is use an M6 bolt and you wind it in the pump and it allows you to fish it up and down. Pop your O-ring on, hold the pump, feed it on between the two barbs, then it can sit in position and we can remove our bolt. And give things a wiggle, make sure everything sits properly. Next, onto the wires. Pretty straightforward, however, we don't want them to interfere with the float. That's the one thing that's very important. I found that if we bunch them up, cable tie, this doesn't have to be super tight, it can slide, it just keeps them together. Give them a 90-degree kink, so when they go in, they're going to want to stay up and away. As you can see, it wants to go over the sidewall, which is ideal. And now your float is going to be able to go up and down without any interference. We can put our positives in the connector. Make sure they click in. Remember which position is what. I suggest you write it down before you forget what went where. You can put your lock, this. I've got my negatives bolted onto the hat. As you can see, they're oriented so they don't interfere with the machining here. If you turn them and they're in the way, that's not going to go in. So they need to sit in that position over here. So this is tight here. This connector can go through. We can grab our bulkhead with the O-ring on there. This is connected and we can pop it into place. Now, probably should have put it on first, but either way, O-ring goes in, O-ring sits in there. I've greased it up so it sticks, makes it a lot easier so you're not fighting it. It's nice and tacky in place. I'm going to give those wires another bit of a kink because I want them to stay up as much as possible. And then all of this is going to go into position. Just look at your mounting holes and that's your clocking. So that's how it's going. Now the kit is in place. You can clock the fittings whichever way you want to run your lines. This is going to be your fuel return. This is going to be your pump 1 and 2. And this is the suction from the other side of the tank. The kit does come with barbs to adapt the factory smaller hoses. We've included a 1/4 inch and a 5/16 because I believe there's differences between certain models. You would have written down which pin is what, and then you can match your top connector, do your wiring. You can have your connector here. If you wish to clock this, you can a little bit, but remember the wires are inside, they're quite short. You don't want to start spinning things around too much. This is your other bolt for the grounding point on the top, so you can run your ground cable from here to a good chassis ground. And if you're using two pumps that are drawing 25 amp each, make sure you run at least 50 amps worth of wiring from that one point. Right, we've got our twin pump hanger installed in the CP9 Mitsubishi fuel tank. As you can see, it's not super straightforward or a quick job. This tank is very small. There's a lot of things in the way, and we've had to jam a lot of components into one spot. If you take your time, follow the steps, make sure everything is clocked properly, everything is terminated on the bench, do all your prep, it's all going to go together. And the only thing you really need to be cautious of is your float arm, so you don't have any gauge problems and have to pull it apart again just to address that. Just focus on that, make sure you're happy with it. And yeah, everything's going to work for you. And it's got plenty of flow for decent horsepower applications. We can fit Woolbro 460s and 525s, so you've got over 1,000 litre an hour worth of fuel in this setup, and it's all E85 compatible. Yeah, it's going to tick most of the boxes out there. So thanks for watching, and thank you for using FPG products.